What's up and welcome back to another video, guys. August is less than a month away, and with all of our other August 2025 sets revealed, I think most people are pretty much on the same page in thinking that it is one of the best selections for LEGO Star Wars Summer Waves in recent years, as well as being the most overpriced LEGO wave in pretty much ever. So I wanted to take a look and dive into this and find out if this is actually one of the best LEGO waves in history, as well as being one of the most overpriced waves in LEGO history. But without further ado, let's get right on into this video. Now, the first set that I want to talk about is set 75432, the V19 Torrent. Now, this is a set that people have been asking for a remake for all the way since the previous one retired. And while this is definitely a shadow of its former self when it comes to the build, I think that the minifigures were executed very, very well here. Now, you get your Obi-Wan, your Ventress, as well as a Phase 1 clone pilot. And I have to say, all of these minifigures do look amazing. Starting off with the Obi-Wan, he has very high detailing on his arms as well as his torso and legs. And then for the Phase 1 clone pilot, once again, it's the first time that we've ever seen a proper Phase 1 finless clone pilot. And I think if, in hand, the printing holds up the way it looks in these photos, could be the best clone trooper of the year by far. The Republic insignia on the top, the yellow printing, it just looks great, as well as having the updated torso printing for the clone pilot kind of apparatus. And then the Ventress looking amazing. A couple of people were not fans of this vibrant kind of fuchsia purple. Personally, I think it looks really good. Yes, I think that the legs look a little bit wonky with how the printing was done, but overall I think this minifigure lineup is amazing. But moving on to the build, knowing LEGO in 2025, no secret that this was going to be a bit of a downsized build. And I frankly do not think that that really takes away too much from the displayability aspect. I do think that the middle wing should have been a little bit longer. I think that would have made it look a bit more balanced, but other than that, I think the build is looking pretty solid. However, the big thing to talk about here is that $65 price tag. Now, looking at this set, 3 minifigures as well as having 567 pieces would be not something that you would originally think would be at a $65 price tag. And this set does really feel like it should be a $50 set, maybe $55 if we're pushing it, but it's marked up around like $15, which is going to be a pretty common theme throughout looking through this wave. The next set that I want to look at is set 75414, the Force Burner Snow Speeder. Now, this set has 349 pieces and a retail of $55 in the US, as well as only having 3 minifigures. And starting off looking past the price, I think the build itself does look pretty cool. It's not one that I'm personally going to be picking up, but it seems to have a lot of fun play features. The new windscreen piece looks amazing, and I can't wait to see how it's used on future snow speeders. All the different fire detailing, which I'm assuming is stickers, but if it was printed, would be very, very cool to see. And then the minifigures, the SIG, I could take or leave. It's not really something that I'm interested in. Darth Dev is a little bit more interesting, but we have seen him already in LEGO Star Wars. This is a different version, but the minifigure that I think is the coolest here is definitely the Solo Toast. Definitely the driving factor of this set. Has a lot of really cool printing on the robes. The purple lightsabers as well as the green skin looks very cool, and I think the face print is also very detailed. But I think the main issue here is that $55 price tag. I think a fair comparison is the Republic fighter tank. Now, this set has just under 300 pieces, and it has 6 minifigures, and it retailed for $40. So this is, a $15 increase, and you get 3 less minifigures and a handful of more pieces. So I think this one also makes it pretty apparent to see. And, with that big decrease in minifigures being one of the most driving factors in the price of a set other than piece count, it is kind of crazy to see that this is a $55 set when it should be a $40 set. Now, I understand the time that has passed in between those two sets, and that, prices naturally increase over time. That's just common knowledge, but I think a $15 price increase over time is a little bit ludicrous, especially for this set. Personally, I think this is one that is not going to sell too well. Personally, I think the only really redeeming quality here is that Solo Toast minifigure that I'm going to really try to get my hands on at some point. Probably just going to buy it separately and not buy this overall set. Overall, I think it's a cool set. It's just not for me, especially at a $55 price tag. Now, the next set, and probably the craziest set that we're going to be talking about, is set 75431, the 327 Star Corps Clone Trooper Battle Pack. And I don't know how LEGO has the audacity to call a $45 set a battle pack. Just a couple of years ago, these were $15, then they got increased to $20, and then in 2025, were increased to $23 in the US. But a $45 set with 258 pieces, as well as only having 4 clone troopers and 3 droids, is insane. Now, I have been a super battle pack hater since day one, since the 501st battle pack came out. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a great battle pack, definitely on the table of one of the greatest of all time, but I still think, why are we getting a $30 battle pack when we could have just gotten a $20 battle pack and cut out all of the extra stuff? I know a lot of people want to be able to in tandem build their droids as well, and I definitely agree with that. And $30, I think, is a fair price for a super battle pack. $45 is ludicrous for a $45 battle pack. I think breaking it up, the best way that I can kind of explain this is breaking this up into two different battle packs. Let's say your first battle pack for $20 would be your 4 clone troopers and your ATRT builds. And your second battle pack would be 3 super battle droids and 1 little crab droid build or spider droid build. But that just wouldn't add up. So you have your first battle pack, which would be the clone troopers and the ATRT, which makes sense for a $20 battle pack, $23, which, I would understand that one would be a great battle pack on its own. But then you have your second battle pack, 3 super battle droids and a spider droid, would not be $20. That would be $10, not even. But then combining them does not equal $45. It's like LEGO's just adding a $15 tax on this, because why not? And I understand the reason that the prices have been increasing, but I don't think that it excuses this being such an expensive set. I would understand maybe like $39.99, maybe even $35 would be a bit better, but $45 is insane. 2 of these battle packs is going to cost you $100 after tax. And if you buy them online after shipping, $100 for 2 battle packs, where you could have gotten so many more in the past. It's just insane. I'm kind of going on a rant here, but I think one other thing to bring up is when this originally leaked out a couple of months ago, it had a little cutaway of Felucia. And that's what a lot of people were taking into account for that $45 price tag, is that you're getting at least a tiny bit extra. It wasn't much, but it was something. But LEGO took it out at the final product to make this set, and it costs the same amount. So it's actually less than we were originally going to get for the same price. And I just think that that is crazy. Now, one thing to talk about here are, yes, the new pauldron pieces. I'm sure that mold was very expensive. Do I think it was expensive enough to, bulk up this set to a $45 price tag? No, this should be a $35 set, no more than that. And I just think it's crazy. This is one that I think hopefully won't sell well. I think it will definitely sell very well once it goes 20-30% off, and I think it will definitely have to go on deep discounts for people to army build them. Don't get me wrong, there's tons of people out there that are going to be buying these day one and buying multiple of them, but is what it is. I have no doubt that this will perform a lot worse than some of the other battle packs that we've seen, and hopefully LEGO sees that and takes it into account, because if I see another $45 super battle pack, I might crash out. And that does bring me to the other point. This could have just been not a battle pack. They could have called it something else, and I feel like there would have been a lot less backlash if they just called it like Battle of Felucia, and I feel like that would have been a lot better. People would have still been mad. I definitely still would have been mad if this is what you get, but calling this a battle pack for $45 is insane. I know I just talked for like 3 minutes about this, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say and I don't sound like a rambling crazy man, but I just think this is insane. $45 for a battle pack. I will not be buying this one at full price. Now, after that long rant, I want to talk about the one properly priced set, in my opinion, being the K2SO security droid. This has a retail of $90 in the US, and I think that you're getting a pretty good value for that, especially when compared to some of the other buildable droids, like the buildable battle droid with its STAP, I believe was like $120. And I think here, for $90, you get a very nice model of K2SO. You get the display plaque as well as the minifigures, and you get 845 pieces. And I have to say, I don't have any complaints. I think this is looking very good, and I think it is definitely at a fair price for $90. I think LEGO could have gotten away with charging like $100, $110, and that would have been a bit ludicrous, and people definitely would have been complaining a lot. But I think at this, it's not a great bang for your buck, but I think it's definitely a bit more balanced than some of these other sets, and I figured this was a good one to kind of cleanse our palate after the big rant about the battle pack. Next, I want to talk about our Jango Fett starship. Now, this has 707 pieces as well as 3 minifigures, and well, I think that the build is overall a very solid build. I think it looks good, and the 3 minifigures that you get are, don't get me wrong, very good minifigures, but the retail being $70 here is definitely just a big kicker, especially when looking back to the Boba Fett starship, which these builds are pretty much exactly the same, just give or take a couple of details as well as the color scheme, and that one was only $50. And even back then, I feel like $50 is a lot more easy to swallow when it comes comes to a Slave 1 build. Then $70 for this. This should be, I feel like 60 would have been, maybe even 65. I feel like comparing this to the V19 Torrents, those ones, you know, pretty similar. I know the piece difference is pretty large, but I still think this is what the actual $65 price point should get you, $60. And the V19 Torrent should have been like $50, I think would have been a better price. But I mean, putting all of that aside, looking toward the previous one once again, this is a $20 price increase and you get one more minifigure and a couple, like 100, 200 more pieces. I just feel like definitely not worth it for 70 bucks. I do think it is a great set and it's so nice to finally be getting Jango Fett's Slave 1 in a playset after so long, over 20 years. And I think that the set was done very well. There's some fun play features and other stuff like that. The minifigures looking very good. Lama Su being one of the best minifigures that we're getting in this year. I think all of the detailing, the printing, and the new mold looks really good, and I think that new mold definitely is contributing to the high price of this set. Moving on, Boba Fett being the same one that we saw in the UCS Jango Fett Slave 1, and the Jango Fett, the big thing here that a lot of people, some people upset, some people happy that we do not have the UCS version of Jango in this set. Now that is a very controversial topic. There's so many people out there that, you know, they want the UCS one to stay exclusive and others that want the UCS one to come out in a cheaper set. Personally, I do understand both sides. Personally, I don't really care what ends up happening. Either way, I'm happy. I think all for it. Getting a cheaper version of Jango is definitely the bigger thing to look at here. Being able to not have to fork over 300 bucks to get a Jango Fett is always a good thing, but I do think that it would have been cool to see this set just be a little bit cheaper, especially when comparing it to his previous Boba Fett's version. I don't think it's the biggest culprit of being overpriced. I think that one definitely goes to the battle pack, but I still think that this one is, you know, showing off our idea of this whole wave just being a bit overpriced. Next up is set 75417, the 18 plus ATSD, or the Ultimate Collector Series ATSD. Now this has 1,513 pieces, one minifigure at a retail of $200. And I feel like that $200 price tag is kind of reasonable given the fact this is a UCS set. Yes, it may be a little bit more than this set may be worth to some people, but I feel like when it comes to UCS sets, you're always going to be charged that premium price. And I feel like LEGO definitely delivered when it comes to a build here. It definitely is more of a premium build and premium feel to this set, which does make it, you know, worth that $200. Some people may say it isn't, but I feel like at that mark, it's definitely not too far off. Now, I feel like the build here was done very well. There's a lot of fun features as well as it still being accurate and also having a very good design in my opinion. I love the flaps on the top for the windows. The overall posable features on the guns as well as the head looks great. Moving on, you have your plaque as well as your minifigure. Now, the minifigure could have used a little bit more detailing, a little bit of changes, but I think the arms look amazing. The printing on the torso looks great. Maybe dual molded legs would have been a big improvement on this figure, but other than that, I think this is overall shaping up to be a very good set, and I feel like it's definitely fair at $200. May not be the best price for this set, but I feel like LEGO definitely could have charged some more money for this set and it still would have, you know, sold okay. I feel like $200 though is a pretty good benchmark, especially when it comes to UCS and 18 plus sets. On to our two big play sets. I am going to be skipping the buildable Ewok. I think that we just don't have images, so I don't really want to talk about it. I will say 120 bucks for a buildable Ewok is a little bit crazy in my opinion, but moving on, I mean, what isn't crazy when it comes to pricing for LEGO Star Wars? But our two big play sets both come in at $159.99, and the one that I want to look at first is going to be set 75435, the Battle of Felucia Separatist MTT. A bit of a mouthful on the name, but I have to say, this set looks really, really good in my opinion. Now, yes, it's very small compared to the other MTTs, but what do you expect? It's LEGO in 2025, but I have to say the build looks great. I think that the detailing as well as the shaping was done very well from LEGO here, and I think with all the different details, the shaping, the coloring, definitely on point, and you have a lot of fun play features built in here as well, and I think overall the build here, definitely, probably in my opinion, about like an 8 or 9 out of 10. I'll have to see it in person to actually finalize and give it a proper kind of scoring. And then moving to our minifigures, you get the Aayla Secura, which looks, you know, pretty perfect in my opinion. Commander Bly, I think looks very good, minus the fact that he has a printed waist cape. I think the helmet looks fine. I don't know why it's like such a big issue. I understand the gaps, but I think it looks pretty good. I'm really happy that we're finally getting Commander Bly, and I think he was executed very well given the current state of LEGO Clone Troopers. I think it definitely could have been a lot worse, and I'm happy to be seeing the new plastic pauldron on him as well. Moving on to the droids, you get a healthy amount of droids. It would have been nice to have seen a couple of more, but I mean, you're getting 6 of your normal battle droids as well as your pilot droid, and then we're finally seeing seeing the reintroduction of commando droids. Now they are in gunmetal gray, and a lot of people don't like this, but personally I think they look so cool. Now I don't actually know if they've appeared in gunmetal gray. I feel like they have. I feel like I've definitely seen them like in the Clone Wars or something in gunmetal, or like some sort of gray coloring and not the brown coloring, but I think they look really cool. They have a lot of really nice detailing as well, and it's nice to get a different variation other than the brown that we've already seen in the past. I know some people might be upset because now the brown ones are more expensive or whatever, but I think they look very cool, and I'm happy to see them come out in this set. And I have to say, overall, it is looking like a great set. Now, if this came out last year, it would have been $140, but now, since coming out in 2025, it's $160. And honestly, I'm not insanely mad about that. I think $160 for this kind of playset, especially when you compare it to something like I think a good comparison would either be the Ghost as well as the Imperial Star Destroyer. I would say that this can kind of go pound for pound to one another, making it, excusable at $160. Yes, it is a bit on the pricey side, but I feel like this isn't one that I would just go out of the way and be like, oh, overpriced, don't buy it. But one where I feel like definitely that does shine through a little bit more is when we look over to the turbo tank. Now, this turbo tank, given set number 75413 with 813 pieces, is significantly less amount of pieces than the MTT, but there is definitely a reason that this price is, very expensive, especially in the low piece count. And I think the big reason, there's two new molds in this set, which I think a lot of people are looking over when talking about the price. Commander Bakara has a brand new helmet mold, as well as the Galactic Marines. And helmet molds, pretty expensive for LEGO to put out. Now, yes, nothing as expensive as these actual sets in comparison, but I still think, the main highlight of this set was always going to be the minifigures. The Kiadi Mundi looks amazing. Commander Bakara, I think, is a little bit lackluster, other than the printed wastegapes on all of these figures. I feel like he should have had some sort of, coloring on the arms. I just think he looks very plain. He looks like a plain reg versus actually having any of that maroon detailing. I think the Galactic Marines look amazing. I think they have some really nice printing and detailing, and you're also getting 3 droids in this set. But I think the kind of, fall short here is the build. I don't think the build's bad. I think this build is getting a lot more hate than it deserves. I think for the pieces that LEGO used and the sizing, it actually looks pretty good, and it still has an interior, which many people were saying it wasn't going to, but it looks like it has a pretty spacious interior. Yes, you can't actually stand your minifigures up, which is a little bit sad to see, but I think, you have the interior, you have a pretty solid build here, but this one is pretty obvious. Like I was saying with the MTT, I said the MTT could compare to those other $160 sets. I don't think the turbo tank can. I think if you put the turbo tank in front of the Star Destroyer or the Ghost, no one is really going to be picking the turbo tank, other than the fact that it has good minifigures when comparing those builds to each other. But I feel like this set obviously should have been at $140, but I do think it's kind of odd to think about the fact that I feel the MTT could definitely contend with those $160 sets, but the turbo tank would definitely fall short in a couple of different areas. But I still think it is a very solid set, albeit just a bit overpriced. I think the minifigures are shaping up to be amazing, and I think the build looks very good, and this is definitely one that I will be picking up. But that does it for all of our sets. I know it's kind of an odd time for LEGO Star Wars right now. High prices, but I do think that this wave overall has an amazing selection, and I think if the prices were lower, this would be in contender for one of the best waves that we've seen, especially in recent LEGO Star Wars history. I think some great sets, some great variety. If you're a Clone Wars fan, you're definitely eating good this year. Revenge of the Sith too, got some nice representation there as well. A lot of really cool sets, a lot of ones that I'm very excited for. It's just very sad to see that pricing and the whole duality in that. But let me know down below in the comments what you think of the current LEGO pricing, as well as what sets you're going to be picking up on day 1. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe. Drew signing out.